quote, the idea that we would, want to have our husband there is offensive, perhaps. And so that's a tough one for people. But if we can make this happen, if we can increase the incidence, even if you didn't get it 100%, if you can increase the incidence, get both parties there, wouldn't it make sense that your sales would naturally go up? Because then you avoid that whole, well, let me talk to my husband about that, or let me talk to my wife. And so one of the things we want to do is set that up. One of the strategies that we found in doing this that really helped us with Australian outdoor living, and we were able to raise the incidence of both parties there significantly, is that we made sure that we asked them, and we usually ask twice. So what we would do is when the person called in or went on the internet lead and then we followed them up, we would ask about setting up the appointment with both parties. And the reason we did that is we talked about it being a permanent change to the home. And we'd like all homeowners present. We didn't say husband or wife, we said, hey, basically what you're contemplating is a permanent change to your home, and so what we find is it works best if all homeowners are present so that you can make some initial decisions and selections, and subsequent visits aren't that critical, which takes off a little bit of pressure. So the way it would come in is they'd say, is there a time when we can get all the homeowners there? And and you explain the process on the phone. The way we like to do this is we're going to be selecting colors and fabrics, and we'll be selecting the laminates and different types of items. And it's better if we can do it with all homeowners so we can give you the proper estimate. Any subsequent visits that we make, not so important. And that just took the pressure off, and people would oftentimes say, oh no, yeah, Jim can be here, and we would get that. Now, if they push back at that and said, well, no, Jim, my husband doesn't need to be here, I'm the one making the decision, then what we would often do is say, well, that's fine. And what we did is we did research, and this is best done on a local level. But what we did is we went to each state, and we went online to their consumer affairs agencies. And what we looked up was a building, it was basically a document that was a consumer advice document that made recommendations to the consumer in making improvements to their home. And in what we found unanimously is these documents said, we recommend all homeowners are present on the first visit to make selections because this avoids changes down the road which can be very costly. Now, unfortunately, if you keep reading it, it also says always get 3 quotes, never buy from the first person, right? So you don't want to send your customers to this document, but if you went online, you Googled it for your, and like I said, it works better locally. So it might start with Better Business Bureau, it might be a consumer affairs of your state, your city. But what we found was evidentiary documents that we were able to quote. So it deferred the rationale for us to get both parties there from me saying, I need you both there, which sounds like I just want to sell you, to, hey, we're just following the guidelines of a consumer advocacy group, basically the group you would call if you had a problem with us, and they say that you should both be there. So we prepared that. Now, if after that they said, oh, no, listen, if you don't want to come, we're there. We never pushed it very hard. So it's a bit of a feel, a bit of a task, but what you've done is you've created this idea that both parties are there. And I mean, think about your business right now. If you could make that happen even 20% more than you're doing it today, 30% more, what would that do to your business? What would that do to your bottom line profitability? Because you're not falling prey to that cost of eventually. And it's really the design of helping people make a good decision. Now, one of the rubs in this that I'm learning as I talk to franchise members of this organization is that a lot of you don't like to work Saturdays, and you don't want to work nights. You got into business for yourself because you wanted some freedom of time. The downside is that that's an alternative. And the company I worked with, they took Sunday, Monday off, and they worked Tuesday through Saturday. And what they did was they were willing to come out in the evenings, and they were willing to come out on a Saturday morning. The last appointment was at noon. But they went out and saw 3 or 4 families on Saturday morning. And that allowed them to get in front of both parties. So again, if you're not working Saturdays, you're probably missing out on a pretty good opportunity. You might want to consider that in your business plan. So that was the first thing we found. We got to set the appointment up, and this allowed us to raise the incidence of sales. The second thing we had to do is we had to get the customer out of the mental quote modality, which is I'm just getting quotes. And the challenge is the advertising that you do has to work in reverse of this. Because in order to get people to allow you to come out to their homes anytime, you have to offer free estimates, free quotes, that type of thing to get the marketing happening, to get people to call and respond. So in this case, what we have to do is when we get to the appointment is try to change the expectation a little bit without creating that pressure. And so this is taking people out of the quote modality. The creation of urgency in the home starts at this agenda setting statement. So basically what happens is most consultants walk up to the door, you have a knock on the door, you step back, got your materials, whatever you might have with you, they greet you in. If you don't stop them, they'll say here, right? And they're pulling you to where they want you to estimate and measure. And they figure you're going to measure up and you're going to show them some things and then you're going to give them a quote and everything done. So the better consultants have the ability to slow that process down and take charge. First thing you have to do, of course, is build rapport, find some commonality, compliment them on the floor, something, just try to slow the process down a little bit. But at some point, you have to take charge with this agenda setting intention statement. And it would be no different than what Chip would have done here today when he started the meeting. He said, here's what we're going to do, here's how it's going to work, we're going to have this, we're going to do that, then we're going to do this. So it's much like you chairing a meeting at a business meeting. You're sitting at the agenda, you lay it out, you say, here's what we're going to do, here's what you can expect, I'm going to do this, and you take charge. And you run that appointment. You're the professional, you're the consultant, they know what needs to happen, so you run that meeting. Don't let them run it. If they run it, they're just going to bounce you around and say, okay, what about this? Well, what do you think about doing that? And they're going to take charge. Now, some of that will happen, but you've got to keep it in a focused plan. So your intention statement, by the way, when we're done, I'll give you my email address. If you like, I'll be happy to get you that PowerPoint. I know I'm throwing a lot at you in a short period of time. So I can get it to you on email. I got a jump drive. If you have a jump drive, we can pick it up today. Whatever you need, but I'll get it to you. So don't feel like you got to capture everything. But if you like certain parts, then let me know and I can provide it to you. Some of it you might say, that's a little more than I want to go into. I'm not comfortable that far. That's fine. Maybe later in your business you might reconsider, but think about the best stuff, take the best, leave the rest. I think that's really the goal. So in this case, your intention statement should accomplish several things. The first thing, it almost should introduce a takeaway concept. A takeaway is meaning, I love the movie Glengarry Glen Ross. Did you ever see where Alec Baldwin said, these are the Glengarry leads. You can't have them. Of course, everybody, whatever they tell you can't have, you want. So the takeaway idea is the idea that I don't even know if this even makes sense to you. It's a great way to diffuse pressure and just put them at ease. And it's honestly, you might walk into a certain area and say, you know what, have you ever done that? I mean, maybe you always can find a solution, right? But there's probably certain installations that you look at, this is probably not, what you're looking for us to do is probably not the best solution, and I wouldn't feel good about doing it. I would recommend you do this because of whatever it might be. It might be structural, it might be the space, it might be the angle, who knows, right? But you almost have to start with, I'm not even sure that this even makes sense. What I'd like to do is look at the area, and then I can tell you pretty quickly, we can talk about what your goals are, what you're wanting to do, and then I'll tell you if it even makes sense to do. So it's almost you're taking it away up front, which makes people want it more, psychologically. Second thing is you have to establish you're going to measure the area, and you need their help doing it. One of the mistakes I see so often is consultants that will take a look at an area or a garage, or they'll go in and they'll say, okay, well, listen, I'm going to measure this up, and I'll get back with you, and once you have a cup of coffee, and they let them go. That time when you're doing that measurement is an amazing time, and I wish we had a day together, because we could talk about all the questions, the rapport building, all the things you would do, but you got to get them to help you. They got to stay, and they both need to be there if they're there. Get them, one of them holding the tape measurement while you're measuring the area, and looking at, you're asking questions, and building and developing this urgency and creating pain. But you got to get them to both help you. Then you want to direct them that you'll leave both of them in a place that you can sit down. You need a suitable location where you can show, whether it's on your computer or whether you've got samples or a book or whatever it is you're going to be presenting, that is a place that they'll both sit and you can talk to them about, and that you want to educate. That my goal is to